Representative Sherman, you are
Mr.
recognized.
Chairman, I'm going to use the first minute or two to deal with an issue perhaps relevant to the Middle East Subcommittee and also to the rights and privileges of members of this committee. There are a number of statutes that require the administration to give notices to the committee. And of course, in due course, those are shared with the ranking member and notices shared with all members of the committee. There's probably nothing more important than preventing nuclear proliferation, and an important part of that is whether we agree to a nuclear cooperation agreement with such countries as Saudi Arabia. These come together because in 2020, I was able to add Section 1264 to the NDAA, which requires that before the president even begin to allow Congress to review a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia, he has to file 90 days in advance of the beginning of the review a statement with this committee, a report. And in fact, it appears that a report was filed in late November. It is quite possible that this report went to your personal office rather than the committee's office, in which case it would have been ineffective and the clock would not have started. In any case, no Democrat became aware of this, at least no Democrat on this committee became aware of this until this month. Now, I hope that this committee will draw the line and say that report has not been filed with the committee at least until February, and that's when the 90 days begins. But much more important, we've got to look at whether we want a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia that does not have the safeguards that we negotiated with the UAE. And that's why I hope members of this committee will co-sponsor a bill that I've sent a dear colleague out on that is the bill that Senator Rubio and I introduced in 2018. And it requires that for a nuclear cooperation with agreement with Saudi Arabia, there has to be an affirmative vote of Congress. So while the procedure is interesting, the substance has got to be that we need an affirmative vote. I think Senator Rubio was wise, perhaps sometimes wiser than Secretary Rubio, and I hope that all members will join me in that effort. As to the statement of our witness who says that whoever leads in AI will lead in this century, I agree with you. But you assume it's going to be the United States or China. Some people might bet on Europe. But your statement doesn't start on the idea of what if AI itself is in control. Humankind is spending trillions of dollars to make AI more powerful. Virtually nothing, I would say nothing, is being spent to monitor for and prevent self-awareness, ambition, self-direction. I have a bill on that, and I hope my colleagues will join me to establish a research center to look at that. And in the meantime, I would commend to our witness the 2008 hearing that we conducted in this room that I chaired dealing with AI, using the Non-Proliferation Treaty as a model for what you should be negotiating with China, not with regard to making sure that AI is controllable. The movie industry is one of our biggest exports, and it's a multiplier because it sets the tone. It makes our other products interesting. It builds our name brand. It helps our foreign policy. It really influences and controls world culture. And yet, our movies have to deal with a number of unfair barriers. Most importantly is in China, where only 40 movies are allowed every year to be in their theaters. We could limit China to only 40 electronic products or 40 toys. We have a situation in China where instead of the theater owner giving half the revenue, not even half the revenue, half the box office revenue, nothing for the popcorn, to the movie maker, it's sometimes as low as 20%. Australia and Canada have local content provisions. What steps are you taking so that our trading partners will fairly treat the movie exports?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. There's a lot of topics that you touched upon there. So on
On your concerns about nuclear, that obviously falls under the remit of my colleague, Undersecretary Donano, who oversees 123 agreements. With respect to your comment on AI, our policy is we are very concerned about the landscape getting quite competitive between the US and China. And so our policy is to accelerate innovation through tax incentive, energy dominance, and deregulation that allows accelerating the build-out in the US.
My question is humankind versus AI, not China versus the US. If the US beats China, but AI itself is in control, as I told to one Chinese diplomat, the machines that destroy humankind will be designed in Silicon Valley, not in Shanghai. Therefore, we win.
Congressman, I think you're articulating a hypothetical future where machines take control. What we do know today for sure is that China is racing to outpace us in AI innovation, and that the benefits of their AI progress flow directly to the People's Liberation Army. And that is a national security risk that we are not willing to take. And so our policy is to make sure that the US government stays in the lead. By at home, we want to accelerate innovation, and abroad, we want to encourage the adoption of American technology.
Representative Self.